اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Start, inshallah, answering some of the questions that we have. I'm sorry we delayed it, in the beginning of this session, We'll try to make it, toward the end of each session, to have some questions, make them ready. This is the exception, not the rule.
In the preface, the second last paragraph, what does it mean that 40 other hadith are followed by Hadith Qudsi without a chain of transmission through the Messenger of God? How could it be a hadith if the Messenger ﷺ didn't say it?
If you want to look at the whole book, the whole baggage, done by Sheikh Muhyiddin, he wrote down 40 hadiths that we are going to recite, in this session, by chain. Then he put down another 40 hadiths. The question is, how come it's hadith, without chain? Without chain, you may have hadith. When I say إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, this doesn't mean that this hadith without chain, it has a chain. Why did the Sheikh did not put the chains, To best of my idea, I may be right or wrong, in those 40 hadiths, not all of them first mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ. Secondly, some of them, they were taken from the old books, from the books of Sayyidina Musa or Sayyidina Dawood or whatever, That's why we don't have the real physical chain of it, The 40 hadiths that we are going to recite now, all of them, with few exceptions, they are in the form, famous, reference, or book of references, in our Islamic library. Namely, you have Sahihain, you have Al-Kutub al-Arba'a, then you have Mustadrak al-Hakim or whatever, I prepared myself, if I have a question, this hadith where it's available, to mention it, I'm not that good, but I wrote it down, But for the other 40s, I imagine, I never tried, that the task is going to be much more difficult to find them, and then you are going to find some of these hadiths. They are not mentioned in our book references, They are taken either from old books, or old narrations, of these matters. Why they were chosen, They were chosen because they are straightforward and summary of something mentioned in our Holy Quran or in the prophetic hadith. Okay, for a person like me, it may take him days and months, to understand this fact. Whereas this thing, which has been mentioned by the Sheikh, in the second 40s, is going to be just brief, short, that this is what this is the outcome, this is the net result, of it, And this is for me. It means a lot. This is going to save a significant amount of my time, Besides this, you are going to have a lot of controversy about it. Many of these issues, they are going to be controversial, I cannot force everyone, to understand the same thing that I understand. I fully go with this great Sheikh, and his understanding, Even, why I'm speaking about it, because there's hadith, I feel it was fake hadith, even though the fact there, it's real, And I told that person, we derived it from Quran. He said, no, I don't see it on Quran. I'm not going to argue with such a person, okay? This is his understanding. I cannot take it from Quran. Okay, you cannot take it from Quran. But the other persons, they took it from Quran, okay? So that's why you have much more room, for controversy, for argument, for the second 40 hadiths than the first 40 hadiths.
Why were Hadith Qudsi collections not compiled early on by the Muhaddithun?
I'm going to little bit broaden the answer of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, He said, Al-Kitab wal-Hikmah. And Many interpreters, of the Quran, they said al-hikmah or the wisdom is the prophetic statement. This is my experience. I may be completely wrong. Okay. Many of the Muslims nowadays, they astray themselves, of gaining this hikmah from the prophetic statement by searching for this is authentic, this is sound, this is weak, this is throw it away, which I completely disagree with this, or whatever. What I'm trying to say, we are occupied. This is great thing sometimes, waste of time other times, okay? And just judging these ahadith, okay? And the muhaddisin per se, this is their main task, okay? To judge these ahadith. Some of them, they are quite excellent, like Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, or whatever. The other, I'm sorry to tell you, especially in our time, they are really bad, okay? And they have significant misunderstanding of these matters. Generally speaking, those who are good and those who are bad, they are shipping us, both of them, of getting the maximum benefit, of these ahadith. This is my answer. I may be right or wrong, That's why the muhaddisin, they were not the first one, to pick up al-ahadith al-Qudsiyah, because their main concern is going to be according to studying the chain, and criticizing the chain, Whereas such a great sheikh, like our author, one of his main concern, as he mentioned, in the introduction or preface, that I found out that to collect 40 hadiths for our hereafter, it's much more important than this life. And this was his main purpose, of collecting those hadiths.
Can you recommend a sharh for this book?
Firstly, I'm not that expert, in knowing the books and the editions, okay? I have in my mind some people who are an expert on this. Secondly, I haven't come through any book, which is sharh, of this particular book. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not telling you it's not available, but I don't know about any sharh.
In Hadith 2, at the end of the Arabic, where it says, فَمَنْ عَمِلَ عَمَلًا أَشْرَكَ فِيهِ غَيْرِي فَأَنَا مِنْهُ بَرِيءٌ وَهُوَ لِلَّذِي أَشْرَكَ. This minhu and then وَهُوَ, is this referring to the action or is this referring to the person?
Generally speaking, as I said before, you should have the collection, of everything, When you read in Targhib wa Tarhib written by Hafiz al-Munziri, a person like me is going to look at all of his deeds, they are negative, they are useless, they are of nothing, and this is what you take from the apparent meaning of these ahadith. And a bari minhu, I think, from the deed, don't make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bari from the person or the practitioner of that particular hadith. What Imam al-Ghazali did say, that even when you have mixture, and we are deficient, we are weak, we are humankind, when you have mixture, according to Imam al-Ghazali, whatever has been, aimed to someone or something except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are not going to be rewarded for. Whatever aimed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are going to be rewarded for. But to be honest with you, the apparent meaning that you get from these ahadith mentioned by Hafiz al-Munziri at the beginning of his book make you feel that even if you have 1 in 1,000, which is not related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the whole thing is spoiled, and you don't expect any reward for that particular hadith. So this is in my mind, we have the two groups of people, the first group that they said, no, you are not going to have anything. The other one is going to go by the percentage, and according to the percentage, of your sincerity, in that particular deed, you are going to be rewarded.
Last question for this session. Can you expand on the saying of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, Al-abdu azim wa ma tawfiqi illa billah?
The best explanation of it, what we recite in Surah Al-Fatiha, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. These two sentences means combination. And we should have the combination. Even though it was mentioned like na'budu. Why? Because the Muslim person, all of his life is ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when he eat or sleep or whatever, And in all of his activities, you should look at his component, which summarized by Iyaka na'budu there, okay? And the component from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the decision maker, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ, okay, and this has been summarized by وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And really I am amazed, too much, about this answer from Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, because this is applicable for all our activities, in this life. And this is, by the way, I should remind, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, mentioned by a prophet, not mentioned by ordinary man, When he said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ, this is mentioned by a famous prophet, Sayyidina Shu'aib, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wa sallam. Okay. We'll carry on, inshallah. If you have any more questions, toward the end of this session, we may try to answer some of them. الحديث الثالث حدثنا مسعود عبد الله بدر الحبشي. This is the student of the Sheikh, okay? And this is, you may consider it from رواية العالي عن النازل, or they have another call for it, not عالي عن النازل, رواية الفاضل عن المفضول, and the first one to initiate it was the Prophet ﷺ, because he stood on his pulpit, and he narrated from Tamim al-Dari, the story of Tamim al-Dari, how he met with Al-Jassasa and Masih al-Dajjal. He was the first one. And here the Shaykh radiallahu anhu had the same thing, he narrated from his student, okay? معتق حدثنا مسعود عبد الله بن الحبشي معتق أبي الغناء بن أبي الفتوح الحراني عن يونس عن أبي الوقت عن المليح عن إسماعيل الهروي. إسماعيل الهروي, this is very famous writer, in Aqidah and in Tasawwuf. One of his main book is منازل السائرين, very famous book. عن محمد بن عبد الله عن أحمد بن نجدة عن يحيى بن عبد الحميد عن ابن المبارك عن يحيى بن أيوب عن عبيد الله بن زحر عن علي بن يزيد عن القاسم عن أبي مهامة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال قال الله عز وجل إن أغبط أوليائي عندي مؤمن خفيف الحال ذو حظ من صلاة أحسن عبادة ربه وأطاعه في السر والعلانية وكان غامضا في الناس لا يشار إليه بالأصابع وكان رزقه كفافا فصبر على ذلك ثم نقر بيده ثم قال عجلت منيته وقلت بواكيه وقلت رأسه.
Third hadith, according to Abu Umama, the Prophet, may God give him blessings and peace, said, God, ever mighty and majestic is He, says, among my friends, the one to be envied most in my eyes is the believer who has but little means and whose fortune is prayer, who worships his Lord in the best of modes, obeying Him in secret and in public. He is unnoticed among men. They do not point Him out with their fingers. His livelihood is just sufficient, and he accepts that with patience. Then the Prophet snapped his fingers and said, his death is hastened, his mourners few, his estate of little worth.
When he said in the Al-Bata, it means that any human Muslim person, when he wishes something, or hope in something, he should look at this description mentioned in such a hadith. And these are the most beloved description, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And this has reminded me of the most hated thing, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as mentioned in another hadith, إن الله يكره كل جعفري جواز سخاب في الأسواق زيفة بالليل حمار بالنهار عالم بأمر الدنيا شاهد بأمر الآخرة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates the one who is جعفري, is proud of himself, متكبر, Okay, Jawaz, that means Jamu'a Manua is going to collect a lot, and be stingy. Okay, Sakhabi fil aswaq has very loud voice, in the markets. Okay, Jifatin bil layl himar bin nahar is like a dead person, overnight, and like a donkey, over the day, because he's hard worker. Okay, عالم بأمر الدنيا جاهل بأمر الآخرة is quite knowledgeable, and oriented, about this life, and he's otherwise, for the hereafter. So this for me and for I think for everyone should be, okay, this very good standards, of knowing those descriptions that love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those descriptions that hated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of us, we should work hard whenever you have any of those hated, attributes or characters, to try to get rid of it, to run away of it, and whenever you have those good standards, I should emphasize it, I should maximize it, and I should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for such a thing, because all of these matters, they are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm sorry to tell you, in one of my majlis, when I mentioned this hadith about hated description, from Allah, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the listener or audience, he said, all of us, we have those descriptions. Okay? So be careful about it. And here you have a message come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates, Even you find it, in the human societies, What is liked, in US, not necessary to be liked, in Middle East, not necessary to be liked, in the Far East, and you name it, and whatever. You have different standards, you have different characters, Some of them, they are praised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the other, they are hated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You shouldn't fool yourself, you shouldn't be according to your time or place, you should be according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standardized for you, okay? And this is reminding me when I spoke about time, that the Prophet ﷺ in the authentic hadith, he did say that يذهب الصالحون الأول فالأول ويبقى حسالة كحسالة الشعير لا يباليهم الله باله. Okay, I think this is our time, Husala, that's mean we are the dirt, nowadays, when we buy barley, or wheat, we go to the supermarket, and it's going to be quite clean. But in the old days, it was going to contain some of those dirts, inside it, and they are going to have hard time, in picking up those dirts, and taking them away. And this description of the Prophet ﷺ, for sure, no one of us does like it, to have it, as such inside himself, but this is the reality. If I want to match my community and my people, I'm going to be of that level of husana. If I study, I'm not telling you to look at the angels or the prophets, look at the companion, okay? Admire them, try to be closer to them. This person, he did please the Prophet and that stand. The other one did make him sad. The third one did work against him, and you name it, and all of these, I look at them as a lessons, given to us, to see ourselves, where do we stand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did praise these great companions, namely the Muhajirin and Ansar. By the way, I don't like to translate them. Don't say the helper and the immigrant, because this is name. Like when you have name, this is Abdullah and this is Zayd, this is the name of them. This is not to subject of translation to say immigrant and helper. No, they are Muhajirin and Ansar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did praise both of them, in 2 verses, Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised us in what? He praised us in 2 items. To have this heart clean, toward all of believers, and then to make dua for those who came before us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not describe us as knowledgeable or good worshipper or this or that. He does just describe us, by these two items, And personally, myself, for myself and for the others, I would like, to find these two items mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are available in our practice, day-to-day practice, I'm sorry to tell you, many of, inshallah, none of the audience, but many of the Muslims, they have massive criticism. Hum rijal wa nahnu rijal. The other, they may call one kafir. Have you met with him, Do you know him? Have you had any touch, with that person? The third one, criticize Bukhari. You criticize Bukhari? Bukhari did lend you some money, and you want to take them back, or you have some bad argument with Bukhari. Why you are criticizing Bukhari? This is my understanding. I may be completely wrong. They want to criticize the Prophet, but they don't have the guts, to criticize the Prophet. They try to criticize Bukhari. This is, I heard it, from a person has some turban, from, I'm not going to describe it, If I did not hear it, I will not believe it. He said, it's fake personality, Bukhari, because Jum'a al-Bukhari, I did search, on computer, I assume, he searched, and he did not find Jum'a al-Bukhari at all, which is Jama'ahu al-Bukhari, not Jum'a al-Bukhari. This is not the name of, that particular person, But you see how silly, how low we are when we try to criticize those summits, And this is for me, for my understanding, it's completely against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do. والذين جاءوا من بعدهم يقولوا ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان. I see it as opposite, completely opposite, of it, which I don't like to be in such a position for me or for anyone that I love. Okay, and be careful. Don't go according to the stream that you have nowadays. Okay, let all of us, have high selectivity, about what he like or what he dislike, and make it, closer. I may not be able to match what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described in this great particular hadith about what He loves subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He expects to have us, have our wishes, or whatever, You see, in this hadith, he did not mention about PhD, he did not mention about some academic degree, he did not mention about money, rather than he mentioned that he was low in money, he has a small amount of money, he has short age, he has this, he's not famous, among the people. You see, for some of other communities nowadays, it's completely opposite of what we are interested in, We are interested in being famous. We are interested in having a lot of money, rich and famous. Okay, we are interested of having a lot of surrounding, among us. And here the description given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is Hadith Qudsi, is completely opposite of all of these matters, And these the matters that you should wish, about them, Not to wish those that you have it in your environment or in your community, or whatever of that regard. And on the other hand, when you look at those hated descriptions, given to us, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again you should be careful, about it and run away from them. I'll move to hadith number 4. حدثنا يونس بن يحيى حدثنا يحيى بن إبراهيم السلمساء. I think here you have Jim miss السجل الماسي or something of that regard. I'm not quite sure here. It's written السلماسي in my copy. أخبرني أبي حدثنا أبو نصر أحمد بن محمد قال حدثنا أبو بكر بن عبد الله البزاز. This is البزاز. حدثنا أبو جعفر عبد الله بن إسماعيل هاشمي حدثنا ابن أبي الدنيا. This is a famous muhaddis, have many books, most of his books, speaking about zuhd, about tawakkul, about sidq, about shukr, and you name it, about certain spiritual characters, that we need them a lot, in our life. حدثنا هارون موسى قال أخبرنا عبد الله بن بكر السهمي حدثنا عباد بن شيبة الخبطي عن سعيد بن أنس عن أنس قال بينما رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم جالسا إذ رأيناه يضحك حتى بدت ثناياه فقال عمر ما أضحكك يا رسول الله بأبي أنت وأمي قال رجلان من أمتي جسيا بين يدي رب العزة تعالى فقال أحدهما يا رب خذ لي بمظلمتي من أخي فقال أعطي أخاك مظلمته قال يا رب لم يبق من حسنات شيء قال يا رب فليحمل عني من أوزاري ففاضت عينا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالبكاء ثم قال إن ذلك ليوم عظيم يوم يحتاج الناس فيه أن يحمل من أوزارهم قال فيقول الله عز وجل للطالب ارفع رأسك فانظر إلى الجنان فرفع رأسه فقال يا رب أرى مدائن من فضة وقصورا من ذهب مكللة باللؤلؤ لأي نبي هذا لأي شهيد هذا قال هذا لمن أعطاني ثمن قال يا رب ومن يملك ذلك قال أنت تملكه قال بماذا يا رب قال بعفوك عن أخيك قال يا رب قد عفوت عنه قال الله تعالى خذ بيد أخيك فأدخله الجنة ثم قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عند ذلك اتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم فإن الله يصلح بين المؤمنين يوم القيامة.
Fourth hadith, Anas ibn Malik said, one day when the Messenger of God, may God bless him and give him peace, was seated amongst us, we saw him laugh and laugh until his teeth were showing. Umar asked, what makes you laugh, O Messenger of God, you for whom I would give my own father and mother? He replied, two men of my community were kneeling before the Lord of might, ever exalted is he. And one of them said, O my Lord, retrieve for me what my brother has wrongfully taken from me. He said to the accused, give back to your brother what you have wrongfully taken from him. But my Lord, he replied, nothing of merit has been left to me. Then my Lord, said the first, let him carry some of my burden. The eyes of the Messenger of God, may God give him blessings and peace, filled with tears. And he said, indeed, that is a fearful day, when people will need someone to carry part of their burden. Then he continued, and God, ever mighty and majestic is he, said to the plaintiff, raise your head and look towards the gardens of paradise. He raised his eyes and exclaimed, my Lord, I see cities of silver and palaces of gold, crowned with pearls. To which prophet or martyr does it belong? God replied, it belongs to whoever pays me the price. He asked, and who, my Lord, will own it? God replied, you will. He asked, but how shall I do that, my Lord? God replied, by pardoning your brother. He said, my Lord, I have already pardoned him. God, ever exalted is he, said, now take your brother by the hand and lead him into paradise. Then the Messenger of God added, fear God and promote peace and reconciliation amongst yourselves, for surely God shall establish peace among the faithful on the day of resurrection.
Firstly, you may consider this hadith as detailed one of the summary mentioned in the Holy Quran, اتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم. Secondly, you see the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how He is involved, in making these people, forgive each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, as we mentioned in the first hadith. It's not going to be unjust. For anything from His side, is going to be the great forgivers, of all of these matters. When He bypasses your rights, this is a problem. Okay? Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the absolute just one, and He's going to be unjust when He bypasses this right. So He has some, I do it in this way, it may be right or wrong. He has some tricky ways, of making the others, accept, or please, to forgive each other. And one of the humankind who was really interested in it, was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even though really I admire him, how he established all of those facts, and principles, of the obligation and prohibition or whatever. He is going to be that perfect and excellent, in intercession, and have the forgiveness, When he went to Arafat, to best of my knowledge, after Hajj became an obligation, he has only one Hajj, bi abi wa ummi. And in Arafat, what did he make dua, Not for himself, not for his family. Allahumma ghfir li ummati. This was his dua. This was his main insist, in Arafat, And he was accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for anything from my side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But for the others, I'm not going to forgive, what has been done, for the others. The Prophet ﷺ did not get despaired, did not get bored, of it. Kept asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, you have the full capacity, to please each other, and make everyone, forgive the other, And he kept his dua till the whole dua, as Hafiz ibn Hajar confirmed this hadith, was accepted in Muzdalifah. You see, why I'm speaking about it? Before going to the second point, I would like to highlight here how perfect was the Prophet ﷺ in tabligh, or delivering his message. For sure, the main point to use is talk and speech, and he was the most eloquent one. But besides it, you see in this particular hadith, what did he do? The tears start coming, from his eyes. This is for me, make my heart shaky, make myself, fearful, of that position. Because when the Prophet ﷺ, he was tough, ﷺ, in facing the problems, and the disasters. When he cried and had the tears, come, it gives you another extra, or maximize the message, about how important, how dangerous is that stand. Then we come to the bottom, to ourselves, and here what I would like, what I understand from this particular hadith, please, for everyone, including myself, try to mend what you have done wrong. Anyone who has done wrong, with his parents, or with his children, or with his spouse, or with his neighbor, or he backbite someone, or he spoke badly about someone, or he tried to mimic someone, try to fix it. You see, even though we may feel it's too difficult to have it fixed, in this life, as you may see from this hadith, it's much easier, than having it fixed, in the hereafter. Okay? Here, you are a tricky person, you may have certain way, of pleasing the other, or get their satisfaction, by nice wording, by some money, by a gift, by this or that. Whereas in the hereafter, you see, it's a matter of hasanat and sayyi'at. And that poor person, had all of his hasanat gone away, and that person still wants his rights, and he wants to have some of his sayyi'at to be put, on his who? Perhaps this one of the dearest person, That's why you recite the Quran, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. Why he ran away, from those who are the dearest, in this life, his brother, his parents, and his spouse, and children. Because these are the people that we deal with them, the most in this life, Alhamdulillah. I did not deal with Sayyidina Abu Bakr to have some argument with Sayyidina Abu Bakr. I did not deal with Sayyidina Abu Hanifa. I did not deal with Sayyidina Bukhari. I dealt with these people, That's why I'm going to run away from them, the hereafter, because I don't want them to take my hasanat, and put their sayyat on me. Okay. So, what I understand from that particular hadith, try to fix, try to mend your relation with the others, in this life, because regardless of how difficult, how bad is going to be on your heart and your behavior and your ego and whatever, of that regard, is going to be much easier, than the hereafter. Okay. And that's why this is here mentioned at the end. I think some narration mentioned at the beginning, اتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم فإن الله يصلح بين عباده يوم القيامة. And this is, you have it a verse in the Holy Quran, and all of us, we should be quite familiar with it, and quite familiar with the meaning of it, May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve us, of having such a critical stand, in the hereafter. We move to next hadith, الحديث الخامس. حدثنا محمد بن خالد الصدفي حدثنا يونس بن يحيى حدثنا أبو الوقت السجزي حدثنا عبد الأعلى المليحي حدثنا إسماعيل الهروي. This is the same one as spoke about منازل السائرين عن أحمد بن محمد بن حسنويه أو حسنوية عن حسين بن إدريس عن عثمان بن أبي شيبة عن محمد بن بشر عن محمد بن عمر عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لما خلق الله الجنة النار أرسل جبريل إلى الجنة قال انظر إليها وإلى ما أعددت لأهلها فيها فجاء فنظر إليه وإلى ما أعد الله لأهلها فيها فرجع إليه فقال وعزتك لا يسمع بها أحد إلا دخلها فأمر بها فحجبت من مكانه قال ارجع إليها فانظر إليها وإلى ما أعددت لأهلها فيها قال فرجع إليها فإذا هي قد حجبت من مكانه فرجع إليه فقال وعزتك لقد خشيت ألا يدخلها أحد فقال اذهب إلى النار فانظر إليها وإلى ما أعددت لأهلها فيها فجاءها فنظر إليها وإلى ما أعد الله لأهلها فيها فإذا هي يركب بعضها بعضا فرجع إليه فقال وعزتك لا يسمع بها أحد فيدخلها فأمر بها فحفت بالشهوات قال ارجع إليها فانظر إليها وإلى ما أعددت لأهلها فيها قال فرجع إليها فإذا هي قد حفت بالشهوات فرجع إليه فقال وعزتك لقد خشيت ألا ينجو منها أحد إلا دخلها.
Fifth hadith, according to Abu Hurairah, the Messenger of God, may God give him blessings and peace, said, when God created the garden of paradise and the fire of hell, he sent Gabriel to the garden. He said, look upon it and upon what I have made ready for its inhabitants. So he went there and looked at what God had prepared for its inhabitants. When he returned, Gabriel declared, by your might, anyone who hears of it will surely enter it. So God ordered paradise to be veiled with unpleasant and hateful things, and said, return now and look upon what I have prepared for its occupants. Gabriel returned to it and beheld how it was veiled with hateful things. Then he came back to him and declared, by your might, I fear now that no one will enter it. Then he said, go now to the fire, look upon it and upon what I have made ready for its inhabitants. When he went there, Gabriel looked at it and at what had been prepared for its inhabitants. He saw how it was all piled up in layers, one on top of another. When he returned, Gabriel declared, by your might, no one who hears of it will enter it. So God ordered the fire to be encircled with pleasing and desirable things, and said, return now and look upon what I have prepared for its occupants. Gabriel returned there and beheld how it was encircled by desires. Then he came back to him and declared, by your might, I fear now that no one will be saved from entering it.
This hadith is very important in our time to have our interest, shifted to elsewhere, and we should take it seriously when Sayyidina Jibreel said لَقَدْ خَشِيتُ أَلَّا يَدْخُلَهَا أَحَدٌ regarding heaven, that he was afraid no one is going to enter it, and about hellfire, that everyone is going to enter it. This reminded me, everyone should, don't put yourself in a position that it depends upon your decision to do it. You may have it, sometimes, but don't put yourself in a position. I'm going to tell this story. One of our friends, during the last Eid, he went to Beirut, and by mistake, he was given a room in the hotel, which full of the alcoholic beverages. I told him, don't think that it was easy for you. This is difficult test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put you there and to have you saved, and go away. Why? Because I have read in the books, about certain righteous people, or great people, and they have this position, they are going to be broken out. Okay? And that's why don't put yourself, in that particular critical position. Be safe, like they say, drive safe, okay, be safe, okay, have the good company, the good friends, the areas that you go, they are good areas, or whatever. This is the first point. The second point, which I like, we are humankind. We are full of desires, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did highlight. those matters. He said, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ. These are the main items that we are going to be, regardless of our strength, and belief or sincerity, to be quite weak in them. Okay, that's why, as I said, before, don't put yourself in such a position, because you don't know the outcome, of it. The last point I would like to highlight, what did he mention here? It was translated like in circle. It's huffat, that like a margin. Be sure about it. Okay, يعني here, when you start relate yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may have something undesirable or hated to you. But this is what, as mentioned in this hadith, it's meant, I think. It's mentioned like margin. What's the meaning of margin? You see the edge of this table, this is very thin area, When you penetrate, the whole thing is gone. Okay? That's mean you are going to love it a lot. You are going to be one of the happiest person. And vice versa. For those who are interested, on the actions, of hellfire, it's a margin. Okay? Women, money, whatever has been described in that particular verse, they are a margin. When you penetrate, you are going to be in the most miserable life. That's what I have heard, some people, those who drink wine, they are too eager, to have the same happy moments that they have it at the first time. They never have it. Okay? And this is, for me, a message, This is not only for wine, for anything, You may, I'm not telling you, no, you are not good. No, you may enjoy it, But this is very limited and very short one, And after that, you are going to connect your heart to such a thing, And you never achieve it, never reach it, As they mentioned about wine, it's mentioned about everything. The Prophet ﷺ did specifically mention, when the woman gets outside her house, the shaitan is going to make her look 10 times or more, than her reality. It's going to be look much more beautiful, much more attractive, or whatever. When you have the experience with such a woman, then you are going to go back to reality. They are going to go to bathroom, to toilet, and to have the dirt, and to have the foul smell, or whatever, I'm sorry to mention such a thing, but this is the reality. It's a margin. It's not anything else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is too great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make this prohibited on us completely. He said you may have it if you are interested in some of these matters, in the halal way, in the permitted way, in the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed us to do it. Usually we highlight it when we go to nikah. What's the difference between the nikah and the others weddings? The main difference, this is by permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to have the same desire, I'm going to have the same performance, or whatever, but from the permitted way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the permission to do it. The other, they are going to do it from the illegal way, not permitted one. Okay? For us in this life, we may not feel the difference, between them, but for sure in the hereafter, you are going to feel it, And the Prophet ﷺ did give an example about it, like a person, this is he observed in Mi'raj al-Sharif, a person, he has next to him very fresh, and very nice meat, and next to it very foul smell, and very bad meat, and he's going to eat that bad meat, and leave the good one. We may not feel it as such, in this life, but this is the reality of it. And this is part of your relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever you get any of those needed matter, we are not here to be against the desire, of the humankind. About your needed matter, when you have it in the halal way, you are going to enjoy your time, even though it's a margin, you are going to be one of the happiest one in this world. Whereas when you have it in the haram way, you will get used to it. I'm sorry to tell you, when you get used to it, it's too difficult to get rid of it, You are going to enjoy your time, as a marginal one. Then you look forward, you search to have the happiness, never happen to you. Okay? And you are going to have very miserable life. Okay? Usually I give this example. When you get old, your muscles, your joints, you get stiff. Okay? In the same pattern. That's why I should address the youth, among your audience, Try to get the habit, to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to go according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instruction. Many of Muslims, they will put in their mind, inshallah later on we are going to do it, when we are 60-year-old. No, my friend, when you are 60-year-old, as you physically became stiff, in your joints, and in your muscles, you are stiff in your habits, You hardly able or capable, of praying the obligation or doing this or that. So when you have it from your childhood or from your young age, this is hopefully it's going to last for you. When you have it as a promise, for the future, most of us, we don't have it. Nowadays we live in massive opening, time. Even the medical service has been good, We imagine, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, we have a little bit longer age, We have some people, they are 70 or 80 or... Sometimes I look at these people, I say how lucky they are, They have free time to recite Quran, free time to have night prayer. But the reality is not as such, Because these elderly, they did not get used to recite Quran or to have night prayer, in their early age. And that's why, even though they have free time, plenty of free time, they get bored of themselves, and their time sometimes, but they are incapable of doing it. Why? Because they are not used to it. I'm speaking about my experience. I have heard about old women, who make khatam every day, or whatever, This is very lucky woman, and in my imagination, such a woman, she used to have recitation of the Quran a lot, in the past, some of them, they are my relatives, Those who did not get used, to have such a practice, in their early age, it's one of the most difficult, to have it, in the latest age. And that's why you see the Prophet, the great Prophet, what did he say? Muru awladakum bis-salati wa hum abna'u sab'. Okay? Let them get used, to such good habits, None of the scholars did say that in the age of 7 they are responsible and they are sinful and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to record them, or whatever, Why did the Prophet who all of his life make things, easy for us, and make it available, and make us have the largest hope, on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did he say, command them, to pray, on the year 7? Because this is going to make it as a habitual, Prayer is great thing, I would like to say it not habitual, but even to have it as habitual is going to make you get over many of those problems that you are faced with, in your life, by getting this habit, to pray, to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, generally speaking. I think we should stop here and receive some questions. You have 10 minutes left. Okay, so if you have any question, please.
You mentioned Hadith 4 is a summary of an ayah in the Quran. What surah or ayah is this related to?
This is in Surah Al-Anfal, the first verse. يسألونك عن الأنفال قل الأنفال لله والرسول فاتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم. Okay, so you may have this Hadith number 4 as full detailed explanation, of the meaning of وَأَصْلِحُ ذَاتَ بَيْنِكُمْ.
Two questions related to the end of the third hadith. عُجِّلَتْ مَنِيَّتُهُ. So the first question says, is there a special reason maniyatuhu is used instead of mautuhu? Are there subtleties in the language? And the second question says, what does that mean? Why is his death hastened?
For the first component, of this question, to be honest with you, this never come to my mind. It may have some difference, but I have no answer to such a question. For the second one, we live in a time fitna. I observe, I don't know if you observe, many of the good religious people, they became atheists. Many of the good practitioners, they stop praying. When I look at this, I'm speaking about myself. The whole life, I hate my life if it's without relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I cannot even have small portion of moment, without knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll give you example about it. You recite Surah Yasin, and this person, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى, according to many of the interpreters, he was killed by his people. قِيلَ ادْخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ. And here from the apparent physical show or picture, he was one of the worst one, He missed the whole life. I assume he was young. Okay. But in the meanwhile, he was hearing udkhul al-Jannah. Okay. So here, in such a position, if I haven't, but if I am going to be at this udkhul al-Jannah, I would like to die right now, because I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow or the after. So that's why those people, those great people, when they have a moment, that they feel that they are accepted, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would like to die. This is not against the other hadith which give the full authority to Allah. اللهم أحيني ما دامت الحياة خيرا لي وتوفني إذا كانت وفاة شرا لي. Because you have many, some of them prophets, some others, they make dua when they felt that the coming test or temptation, they may not tolerate, and they may have some change in pattern, Among the prophets, you have Sayyidina Yusuf, he said, توفني مسلما وألحقني بالصالحين. He reached the summit, in this life, and he was afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, take me. Okay, Imam Bukhari, when they have that particular fitna, he said, اللهم ضاقت علي الأرض بما رحمت فاقبضني إليك. Okay, those statements, come from these righteous people. They by no means, they contradict with what we study in the Holy Quran. Whenever you feel that you are in such a position that you may be tempted, or going back forward, or whatever of that regard, you may wish for this, even though you should have full surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that regard.
Can you comment more about the laughing of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the beginning of Hadith 4?
One of the main concern of the Prophet ﷺ was his community or his nation. And whenever he's given any of those good or great or excellent matter from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to please him for his nation, he's going to laugh, no doubt about it. That's why I was perhaps a little bit fast, in Muzdalifah, he laughed, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he had the acceptance, of that particular dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the absolute and full authority. It may not happen like this, Allah may not intimate that person, that this is great palace for you or whatever. He did it, subhanahu wa ta'ala, this one, just for the sake of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is going to please him and make him laugh. And I think, I'm not here to speak in behalf of him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I think this is my thought, when we try to forgive each other, or whatever, this is going to make the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam laughing or happy, May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of my life and your life, to make the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam happy.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. Is there any significance for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam snapping his fingers in Hadith number 3?
Again, I'm not here to speak in behalf of the Prophet ﷺ. My imagination, here he has some turn point, about that particular person, because he spoke about his life, then he starts speaking about his death, and this snapping of the finger, just to pay everyone attention to the shift, or the movement that he has, ﷺ. This may be the case, may not be the case.
Quote, whoever preserves for my community 40 hadith of which they stand in need, end quote. What does it mean by preserve here, and what does it mean by stand in need?
Deserve, the first one?
Preserve.
Preserve, okay. That's mean, for sure, when we transmit this theory, I highlighted the importance of transmission at the beginning, okay? So here, in our practice as Muslim, and I'm sorry to tell you, we are going to deliver it to our children, we resurrect, we bury many of those prophetic traditions. So the one who preserve, you see the description of the Prophet ﷺ, preserved, that means this has been neglected or not done by anyone, and you are going to be the first one, to initiate it or to have it done. Then about the other two words, which I don't remember, they were stand and.
It was so preserve man hafidha, and then يحتاجون إليه, so stand in need.
Okay, stand in need, that's mean you are going to have something which is needed for everyone. We feel it in ourselves, nowadays. The ahadith, they are all of them great. I may not be able to practice some of them. I may be seeing or observing the others, they are in real need of that particular hadith. I'm going to tell you about my story, about my experience, I, as a physician, I work in different hospitals, and I did observe, Muslim in general speaking, I'm not going to specify more, they work against each other, I'm sorry to tell you this, and when I felt this, I put it as a commitment, in me. Whenever I have the chance to speak, to have some conciliation, or to get over each other, and to try to make everyone happy with the others, And this is then I found this particular hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi when the Prophet addressed Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik, يا بني إن قدرت أن تصبح وتمسي وليس في قلبك غش لأحد فافعل واعلم بأن ذلك من سنتي ومن أحيا سنتي فقد أحبني ومن أحبني كان معي في الجنة. The translation of it, if you have the ability to be in the morning and evening with peaceful and clean heart, nothing negative there, against anyone, do so. And be sure that this is part of my tradition, and whoever resurrect my tradition is going to be real lover of me, and whoever love me, is going to join me in the hellfire, in the paradise. So here, when you come across a person who doesn't pray, I think you should highlight these matters. You should mention it to him. When you mention about charity, for such a person who may be generous, it's not the time. Here you have the priorities. You should have the priority in your time, okay? And we should use it all the time. I'm sorry to tell you, some people, they may abuse it, but this doesn't mean that it's really bad. No, you should have it in your time and your mind. And that's why Sayyidina Mu'adh ibn Jabal, the Prophet ﷺ instructed him, call people to say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. If they accept it, call them to say to pray. If they accept it, call them, to pay zakah or charity, and you name it. This is not because zakah is not a pillar, of our Islam. It's not obligation. No, this to have the graduation and to have the priority, in your life. Okay, and that's why all ahadith, they are great. But everyone, all authors who wrote in Arba'in, they have some idea that these are the most important ones. And this reminds me of what Imam Nawawi did for Arba'in Nawawiyya. He picked up 40 of those ahadith, that any of those ahadith you may consider it as a base, as a rule, that it's applied to many aspects, of your life. When he said إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, when he said بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسٍ, when he said حُسْنِ الْإِسْلَامِ مَا تَرْكُ مَا لَا يَعْنِي, you are going to find most or all of these ahadith selected by Imam Nawawi, they have involvement in all aspects of the life. And this is not only for his people and in his time, this is very important for everyone, for all Muslims, from that time till the hereafter. You got my point? So here, you should be selective. I'm going to mention it in another pattern, okay? All of us, we have touchy point inside ourselves. We sound that we are strong, but the strongest humankind of heavy lifting, or wrestling or whatever, he has touchy point, weakness that you may touch him from there. If you are smart enough, to know that particular hadith that is going to break him down, and subject him to whatever you want to dictate on him, to be a dictator, okay, this is a good idea. Okay, because you are good one, you are a good man, you are Muslim, you are going to dictate on him, how to behave himself. You know about that famous man, here in US. His break point was when he has this massive car accident and he stayed in the ICU for a long time, He felt that this life doesn't mean a lot, and he became a Muslim, okay? I'm not telling you everyone is going to have the same touchy point, but to pick up the touchy point, for such people, and use some Quranic statement, for it, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala word, or some prophetic statement, which is the Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam word, it's going to be, you are going to be quite successful in such a thing, And the first one to do so was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's going to look at the person, and know what's the touchy point, of him, and try to break in, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from that touchy point, that you have in this person, Money, yes. Some of the people came to the Prophet ﷺ, their touchy point is money. And the Prophet ﷺ is going to supply them with a huge amount of money, As Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik said, they are interested in money, nothing else, And when they became Muslim, they are going to love the Prophet ﷺ much more of the whole money that they were given.
Do you want to continue the questions after the break?
Inshallah. The break is going to be a long break, I think.
Yeah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. We're having a long break now for lunch. Inshallah, there's many nearby halal restaurants. Unfortunately, they're doing construction in the cafeteria, so we're unable to eat here. But we'll come back. They play Dhuhr at